Hare Krishna, welcome, dear Satsang. This is Krishna Dasa. So today we are going to complete chapter 16, and we are going to go through the concluding verses, starting from 16.19, going all the way till 16.24. And before we begin, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God. I'll play the Guru mantra. Om Agyanati Mirandasya Gyananjana Shalakya Chakshuru Militamena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः.
Hare Krishna. I'll play the slokas now.
तानहं द्विषतः क्रूरान् संसारेषु नराधमान् क्षिपाम्यजस्रमशुभानासुरीष्वेव योनिषु आसुरीं योनिमापन्ना मूढा जन्मनि जन्मनि मामप्राप्यैव कौन्तेय ततो यान्त्यधमां गतिम् त्रिविधं नरकस्येदं द्वारं नाशनमात्मनः कामः क्रोधस्तथा लोभस्तस्मादेतत्त्रयं त्यजेत् एतैर्विमुक्तः कौन्तेय तमोद्वारैस्त्रिभिर्नरः आचरत्यात्मनः श्रेयस्ततो याति परां गतिम् यः शास्त्रविधिमुत्सृज्य वर्तते कामकारतः न स सिद्धिमवाप्नोति न सुखं न परां गतिम् तस्मात् शास्त्रं प्रमाणं ते कार्याकार्यव्यवस्थितौ ज्ञात्वा शास्त्रविधानोक्तं कर्म कर्तुमिहार्हसि.
Hare Krishna. So today I think Anika ji is reading.
Yes, Guruji. Am I audible?
Yes, yes. Make sure you don't let her take away the phone. Yeah.
Hare Krishna, thank you once again for giving me this opportunity. Verse 16.19. Those cruel and hateful persons who are the lowest among men, I perpetually cast into demoniac wombs in various births in the material world. 16.20. Attaining repeated birth amongst the species of demoniac life, O son of Kunti, such persons fail to reach me and gradually sink down to the most abominable type of existence. 16.21. The three gates leading to hell through self-destruction are lust, anger, and greed. Therefore, one should abandon these three. 16.22. The man who has escaped these three gates of hell, O son of Kunti, performs acts conducive to self-realization and thereby attains the supreme destination. 16.23. Those who discard scriptural injunctions and whose acts are driven by impulsive desires attain neither perfection, happiness, nor the supreme destination. Verse 16.24. Therefore, let the scriptures be your authority in determining what should be done and what should not be done. Knowing what is stated by the scriptural injunctions, you should perform your actions in this world. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much. So here we are. And as you know, chapter 16 focuses on the distinction between Devi and Asuri Sampat, which is divine and demoniac natures. And these set of verses specifically 16.19 to 16.24, they are dealing more with how these people with Asuri tendencies, how they think, how they act, and what are the consequences. So it's a good kind of a user manual for all of us, because Krishna has already said what are the virtuous qualities and how they benefit us, and here Krishna is also talking about the Asuric tendencies and the consequences. And at the end of the day, it's our own choice, which path we want to take, and then we just are given an idea of what the consequences are going to be as well. See, the key point, one of the key points Krishna makes here, he's saying that if you ignore your own inner voice, Krishna says that we all have an inner voice that's always trying to guide us in the right direction. However, if we ignore that inner voice, and if we keep feeding those negative tendencies, and if we keep accumulating this Asuri Sampath, then it is going to lead to sorrow, more and more sorrow. Whereas if we cultivate humility and if we can surrender at the feet of the Guru and at the feet of God, then he says you can go towards spiritual advancement. It's very important. And one of the other things Krishna is saying here, he says that the real challenge in life, we all say that, the economy is bad, or some people think that the climate is really bad, or there is pollution, there is this, there is that. Agreed. But a very profound teaching is the biggest challenges of life, they are not external. They are all internal. The internal challenges are the biggest challenge we face. That is why if you see, we will find people who are happy, blissful, and advancing on the path of yoga, even when they are living in really dusty, hot, poor conditions. There are countless such examples. On the other hand, you can see people living in advanced countries in air-conditioned homes, and they are nowhere evolving. So that is another indication of what Krishna is saying, that the real life challenges, they are the challenges which are within us. And that is why he spent so much time and energy in trying to help us understand both sides of it. What are the Asuri qualities as well as what are the Daivi qualities. And they are both internal. That is the whole point here. So what is the nature of this Asuri tendency? And, how do we make sure that we don't get into them, and how do we make sure that we don't keep falling victim to the repercussions, the consequences of those qualities is, so some of the key things Krishna will say here is, he says, first of all, respect and follow what is written in the scriptures. Pretty much he's talking about all the Vedic scriptures. Moral and ethical guidance is full of that. And he says also, pranipatena praniprashnena sevaya, approach a teacher and surrender. He says that is the best way for us to be on the right track. Then he talks about the nature of Asuri tendencies. So what is at the core of these Asuri tendencies is this belief that life is all about enjoyment. Life is all about sensory pleasures. That belief is central in everybody who is having a predominantly Asuri tendency, because they are never satisfied. They are never satisfied with what they have. Like constant money, more power, more fame, more sensual pleasures. So these are the people who have this mindset that there are this very fancy quotes. They will say things like, might makes right. Have you read this? Or they will say that the winner takes it all. These are all very popular terms in the material world, which the Asuri tendency people, they are very fond of. They get attached to this kind of mindset. Because what happens when they do so? They kind of disregard and they kind of become ignorant to the karmic repercussions. They don't understand that there is a cause and effect. Law of karma, it never fails. So Krishna is saying that these Asuri tendencies, they are because of ignorance, and when you are in a mindset of ignorance, then you also can't understand or appreciate the law of karma, and because of that, such people with Asuri tendencies, they keep getting into these negative mindsets, they keep getting into these negative habits, these negative traits, and they keep falling lower and lower. That is the whole, message he has here. So, if you can see, if you remember in chapter 3 and 4, Krishna spoke in depth about karma. We spoke about karma. Does anyone remember what chapter 4 was? Yes, Lakshmi ji?
Jnana karma sannyasa yoga.
Thank you. So, chapter 3, we focused on karma. Chapter 4, we went deeper and we also spoke about nishkama karma, and that is how we went full circle on all aspects of karma. Fruitive actions and also selfless actions and renunciation in action. So, karma, Krishna has explained in depth very well. And then Krishna is mentioning that, but because when you are feeding these Asuri qualities, what happens is that just fattens our ignorance more. So it's a cycle. Because we are ignorant, we tend to feed these Asuri qualities, and when these Asuri qualities grow, they go and make the ignorance even more darker. They both enjoy each other's company. And he says, then what happens? They have absolutely no idea. They are absolutely not open to this concept of karma. And because of that, they keep falling lower and lower into hellish existence. Birth after birth, repeatedly. You remember, right? 84 million, we said, species. So we have a lot of choices. We have a lot of choices. So based on our Asuri tendencies, we can get to sample, those 83.99 million yonis. The key message Krishna is again saying is the soul, our soul, does not have any control or choice. See, as long as we have this human body, we are able to elevate ourselves. We are able to take our consciousness level higher. We are able to do a lot of these things. But once the body is gone, then the soul is completely at the mercy of Prakriti. Then depending on your karmic accounts, depending on the sanskaras, does anybody remember how sanskaras pass on from birth to birth? Anybody remembers? So, people are okay. Sandeep ji?
Like the breeze carries the fragrance from one point to another, like that it transpires.
Excellent. This is what Krishna said, exactly beautiful. Krishna said, just like the wind carries the fragrance from flowers from one place to another, or not just flower, any fragrance, how the wind can carry it from one place to another, just like that, our subtle body carries the mind and the sanskaras from one body to another. So if in this body we are not careful, if we are not working towards evolution, if we are harboring negative tendencies which gives rise to negative sanskaras, those sanskaras along with that mind, they are going to go with the soul. And Prakriti will direct that soul to a body that is going to match that frequency, going to match those tendencies. At that time the soul doesn't have a choice. There is no choice, there is no free will, there is nothing. All the choice we have is when we have a body. That is why the human birth is so important, because in this birth we can direct our own journey higher. We can direct our own journey towards evolution. We can do that. It's a very powerful message, right? You remember how this happens, because thoughts, words, actions, they're all having a great impact on the subtle body. And the time of death, that subtle body carries all those impressions with it. Very, very, very important concept that is being repeated here. Okay. So this is another reason, or this is another explanation when Krishna says that whatever we carry inside is what is going to manifest outside. So if we carry Daivi qualities within, The external manifestation will look like a divine place because the Prakriti is going to match our soul to a divine womb, in a divine circumstances, in a divine environment, and vice versa. Based on how we are inside, that is how the outside is going to manifest. But if we don't understand these truths, what happens? I mean, we don't understand, then we are going to keep running behind material pleasures. We are going to, keep running behind those things which are asat, mriga trishna. We are going to be busy our entire life living in delusion, and then, see, we all can introspect in our own lives. If we look back, we will ourselves know, honestly, if we introspect, that there have been times when we have not been on the right path. And we have also faced challenges. We have also faced, troubles, because of that. Now, the way to look at it is these troubles, they are like alarm bells that nature is ringing. It's an alarm bell that is telling us, hey, you are not on the right path. You need to wake up. But that is the whole purpose of those alarm bells. But sometimes what happens? We try to escape. We don't want to hear that alarm bell, so we try to play some other music which is louder. This is escapism. Like nature is making you feel bad for something, the alarm bells are ringing, and then that person, instead of facing it or understanding it, they will try to escape that, run away, and they will try to indulge in more. Like, for example, they will start consuming alcohol, or they will go and abuse themselves using drugs, or they will then have to be in parties all night because they want to run away from this noise of alarms, from this. That is kind of totally counterproductive, because in that way we are inviting more and more trouble. See? So what Krishna is saying is, every cause has an effect. We have to understand the law of karma. Anytime we are in the negative track, anytime we are harboring these asuri qualities, the nature will ring alarm bells. Those troubles, those difficulties, they're all alarm bells that are giving us an idea that we are not on the right track. We are supposed to then take note of it and resolve and get on the right path. That is the whole mechanism. But Krishna is not here trying to paint a very gloom and doom. Krishna is not trying to say that, if somebody has had any asuri qualities, they are doomed and they are all. That is not the message. It's again a very empowering message, because Krishna, he assures here that if we can let go of our pride, that becomes the gateway to transformation. See, again, consistency and pride. I would say that these are the most repeating themes in the Bhagavad Gita, and they repeat very consistently. So Krishna is again here telling us the same thing. He's saying if we can let go of the ego and pride, he says that becomes the gateway to transformation. Because unless we do that, transformation is not possible. See, because what Krishna is saying, if we can just let go of the pride, we will be able to at least make a start. And that is what everybody is saying. That is what Krishna is saying. That is what the great acharyas are saying. They are saying, at least make a start. And then God will help you get on the path. But making the start is up to us, is the whole message. So, you may remember, we used to quote this famous verse from Bhaja Govindam. Bhagavad Gita, Kinchita Dita, Ganga Jalalava Kanika Pita, Sakradapiyena Murari Samarcha, Kriyate Tasya Yamanena Charcha. Remember that, right? Where Shankaracharya says that if you read but even a little from the Bhagavad Gita, if you drink just even a drop of Ganga water, Ganga Jalalava, if you can worship Murari even once, then you can escape from the need to have any confrontation with Yama at the time of death. There will be no confrontation. So it's a very beautiful way of saying, just let go of your pride, let go of your ego, and at least get started. Okay, doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how many asuri qualities you have harbored, just make a start. And then the universe will help, God will help, Krishna will help, and the path will become clearer. Because why people find it very hard to make a start? What prevents somebody? See, we all have our inner voice. No matter what kind of a person we are, there is no exception. If you are a human being, you have an inner voice. That is your higher self. It is always, prodding us, telling us that we are not doing something right, or we need what is the right path. That voice is always there. What prevents us from listening to that voice? Pride. You see where this pride, in so many different ways, it becomes such a formidable enemy. That pride does not let us listen to even our own self. If we cannot listen to our own self, where are we going to listen to anybody? Where are we going to listen to the scriptures? Where are we going to listen to Krishna's teachings? It's not possible. You have to start listening to our own self first. That inner self will tell us, seek guidance. Then you go seek guidance, then you listen to others, you see. But that listening to that inner self itself is possible only if we can open the gates, unlock. And how we do that? Just let go of that precious pride. Okay, that is kind of the number one adversary. That is where Krishna talks about the role of the guru and importance of surrender. Because he's saying that people in whom Rajasic and Tamasic qualities are predominant, they find it extremely hard to make a start. That's what Krishna is saying. They find it very hard to make a start towards the spiritual path. All of us here, we are all blessed. We all already have the grace of Krishna. That is why we are able to at least make a start and try to continue on the path. There are countless people who cannot even make a start. They have so much resistance. See, the good example I will give is, let us say you have a car. Doesn't matter how fancy the car is. You may have a Ferrari. Okay? Can you tell me what needs to happen before the Ferrari can take you places? What is the first thing that needs to happen? Yes, Deepaji?
You need to learn to drive the car before.
Even before driving, what you need to do?
You should be able to afford a Ferrari.
Get a license. Get a license.
Okay. Simranji, you are saying something?
I was saying fuel.
Okay. TK, you have fuel. You have a license. Is the car going to take you anywhere? Yes, Sandeep ji?
A road should be available for that.
Okay, you have the road, you have the fuel, you have the license.
The direction, destination, where to go.
Will
Yes.
you have the registration for the car?
Okay, you have the registration also.
We have
Still,
to
is the
start.
car going to take you anywhere?
Start.
You need to
Okay,
You have to have
Suchitra ji.
clarity where you want to go. Where you want to go.
Okay, Suchitra ji said something. Suchitra, what you said?
Start.
Yes. You have to start the car. लाइसेंस है, पेट्रोल है, रास्ता है, रजिस्ट्रेशन है, ड्राइवर है, सब कुछ है. But if the car is not started, if the ignition is not on, if the car is not started, it's not going to take you anywhere. You see? Now, just like that, we may have a lot of potential, we may have intellect, we may have this, we may have that, but somebody has to ignite that spiritual evolution in us. That start, that ignition is what is the role of a guru. This is how it is explained in Vedanta very beautifully. They say that how two fire sticks, they create a fire only when you rub them together the right way. Then a spark comes and that spark catches fire. You see? So that is supposed to be, so the guru's job is not to sit on your head and take you somewhere. The guru's job is to get you started and point you in the right direction and make sure that you are making progress. That's all. But what if instead of using a Ferrari that way, you have a Ferrari, it has petrol, it has everything, but you don't know how to use it. You're using it just as an entertainment, where you are sitting inside the Ferrari, and having nice food and opening the windows, looking out the scenery, Now assume somebody comes and tells you that, Arey Baba, you have this Ferrari, why are you, wasting it? You are supposed to start it and drive. Let us say somebody tells. Now what happens if this person is in the mode of pride? Who are you to tell me? It's my car. It's my Ferrari. I will do whatever I want to do. That's very common, right? I mean, that's the language today we will hear all around us in the material world. It's my life, it's my choice. I will do whatever I want. You see, this is the problem. Is this human body is a lot more precious than a Ferrari. But we don't understand that it needs that ignition and it needs to get started and it has to go in the right direction. And for that, we have to seek some guidance, and that guidance will come in the form of a guru. That is the whole message here. I've tried to simplify it for you, and that is pretty much what Krishna is saying. The acceptance has to first come. If somebody is coming and telling us you have to start the car, you have to accept. Nobody is going to enter your car forcefully and start it for you. Why would anybody do that? Because rightfully that car is yours. So rightfully you own the rights. so nobody can enter the car and should enter the car forcibly and start it for you. But are you open? Are you accepting? That is the whole point. That is why this whole teaching of pariprasnena, pranipatena, they all come into picture. Because if you are in a mindset of acceptance, if you are in a mindset of humility, then the teachings will make sense and you will be able to follow them sincerely. That's the whole thing. So there are, that is why Asuri qualities are a problem, because Asuri qualities are the exact opposite. When you have Asuri qualities, that means arrogance, pride, ego, they all take over. So even in the Upanishads, that's what is written. So in Mandukya Upanishad, there is a beautiful saying. It says, Tad vijnanartam sa gurum evabhigachet samit panihi shrotriyam brahmanishtam. It says, to understand that knowledge of the absolute, one should approach a guru who is learned in the scriptures and firmly established in the path. And when you approach such a guru, you need to carry with you the sacrificial firewood. What does that mean? The sacrificial firewood here is symbolic. It means the humility and the desire to learn. That is the sacrificial firewood. We have to go with that, and the guru will light it, and you will have the fire of knowledge. That's the whole idea here. If you see, the same theme comes all over Bhagavad Gita, because Krishna is also playing the role of a guru to Arjuna, and he's repeatedly telling Arjuna, he tells Arjuna, you put away your mental place, you put away your confusions. Trust. That is that not the message Krishna has been giving Arjuna? He's saying you have to have faith. You have to have trust. Don't be in your head. For example, earlier on, Arjuna is trying to coach Krishna on what is sin, what is not sin. You remember? And Krishna says, you talk like a pandita, but see how you are behaving. So the whole point is Krishna is saying, open your heart, trust, surrender. And that is when the spiritual guidance starts flowing from Krishna, and that is when Arjuna is able to also internalize it and learn the whole thing. Now comes a very, very powerful teaching. This is one of the most famous teachings from the Bhagavad Gita. This is Shloka 16.21, where Krishna says, Trividam narakasyedam dvaram nashanam kamah krodas tata lobah tasmat etat trayam tajet. Where he is saying the three gates leading to hell through self-destruction or lust, anger and greed. He says, therefore, we should abandon these three. Very categorically, he is calling out that kama, krodh, lust, anger and greed. He says these three are the highways to hell or the gateways to hell. So when he says lust, what is he talking about? We discussed this earlier also. Lust doesn't just mean sexual attraction. That is an aspect of lust which is very prominent. But lust pretty much means insatiable desire. More, never satisfied. And also the focus is always me. The focus is not the society or the other person. I want, I need, I want to enjoy, I want to smell, I want to taste, it's all about me, my gratification. That is lust. Because what happens in that mindset, when all the time you are not satisfied. You have you are living in like a hut, you want a house. You live in a house, you want a bungalow. Now you live in a bungalow, you want a palace. It never ends. You have a cycle, you want a bike. You have a bike, you want a car. You have a car, you have a bigger car. Now I want a luxury car, and it never ends. So in other words, the mind is never in a state of contentment. And if there is no contentment, there is no calmness. If there is no calmness, no samatvam. If there is no samatvam, as you say, where is spiritual evolution going to happen? Because samatvam is one of the founding pillars of spiritual growth. So lust definitely is one of the biggest. And then he says krodha. But you see the problem right away, right? Because we saw that these two are very close relatives. Because wherever there is lust, there will also be anger. Kama and Krodha, they are best friends, inseparable friends. And we studied earlier on, I think in the second chapter, where, sensory, you are contemplating on things, sensory objects, they give rise to lust. It means desire, excessive desire. And then what happens when the desire doesn't get fulfilled or it doesn't work out the way you want it to work out? It leads to anger. When you have anger, then it leads you to memory loss, and memory loss leads to intelligence loss, and so on and so forth. So lust, anger, very close friends. We have to remember that. The third is lobha, and lobha is the second best friend of lust, because it is lobh which feeds lust. More. And so you see how these three are very closely related. They're always together. They always come together. They always stay together, and they always bring us down together. That's why we have to be extremely careful of this and avoid them. That is Krishna's strong message here, because he says they can bring down your soul. They can bring your soul down to very low levels of consciousness. However, he's saying that with practice, that is, we had an entire chapter on and where he explained the concept of abhyasa yoga, if you remember. So Krishna says, but with practice, we definitely can overcome it. What is required again? What is required to overcome? Okay, I heard one answer.
Yeah, get rid of pride and be consistent.
Yes, thank you so much. That word, I think we have heard, na? Consistency, I think we have heard that word. Very important, okay? And again, we studied in the previous session, Nanak naam jahaj jo sade so utre par. So the message there is, there are crocodiles in the water. You need to consistently be inside the ship. It is just foolish to keep jumping into the water every now and then. I mean, you're pushing your luck, that's all. I mean, one fine day, those crocodiles the crocodiles are always in the water. So you need to always be in the ship, is the message. So Pragma 16, that brings us to Pragma 16, that says, abandon lust, anger and greed, because these are the gateways to hell. And in the final two slokas, 16.23 and 16.24, Sri Krishna is reinforcing the idea that scriptures are important. The scriptural injunctions are essential because they are like the manual for how to lead a rightful life. And they tell us what is to be done and what is not to be done. In other words, at the beginning of this chapter, we said that 16th chapter will explain karya and akarya, things that we should do and things that we should not do. And that comes from the scriptures. What scriptures are we talking about? Vedas, Upanishads, Bhagavad Gita. Pretty much anything which falls under those Vedantic texts. I think they are all the scriptures that we need to respect and follow. Because if we do not, then we risk falling into wrong guidance and going into the wrong paths. But is it enough? Is it enough to just read some scriptures? No. So Krishna goes one level deeper. He says it's not enough to just read. We have to also understand the purpose. We have to understand the inner meaning. And we need to seek to understand. We need to have the thirst to understand. It is not just reading to show off. This is what we said right at the beginning when we started Bhagavad Gita. The emphasis is not that I can memorize all 700 slokas and recite it flawlessly. Okay, that's a good task. But is that the goal? The goal is how much do we internalize, how much do we understand, and how much thirst do we have to actually understand. That is Krishna's emphasis here. He says we need to. Because just a mechanical following of what is written in the scriptures is not going to help us. What is the other way of saying the same thing? Krishna has said the same thing earlier. He said, just don't follow those rituals, karma kanda. You may remember. The same reason. Because karma kanda, there what we are doing is we are blindly following rituals. Okay, and at the most it may give you some short-term benefits, but it's not going to align us with the long-term goal. So Krishna says, respect the scriptures, read the scriptures, have the thirst to understand the meaning, approach a guru with humility, with the willingness to learn, and then internalize the learnings of the scriptures and follow them. That is the path, or that is how we overcome these three enemies, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, and how we can elevate ourselves. So the how part is very important. Again, the bhava, the importance has been brought out here, that we should have the right bhava when we approach even the scriptures. And again, there is a Upanishad called Katha Upanishad. You can yourself go do some research, Katha Upanishad 1.2.2. And there it says that both the good and the pleasant, they approach the mortal. Does anybody remember the words Krishna had used to differentiate good versus pleasant?
Shreya versus Preya.
Yeah. Please raise your hands so that we can hear one person at a time. Yes, Asha ji, you are saying something.
Is it Shreya and Priya?
Yes. Thank you. So that Upanishad I was saying, it starts with that. Shreyaksha Preyaksha. That is the starting of the sloka. So it says that both Shreya and Preya will present itself to us. Constantly we will have that choice. So the choice between good and bad is relatively easy. But the choice between good and pleasant is difficult. And Krishna says that is where our discernment should be the most. And we need to always choose the good over the pleasant. Okay, very, very important. And when will that come? It will come with discernment. When will discernment come? When the intellect is sharp. When will the intellect be sharp? When it is not a victim of ignorance. What happens when it is a victim of ignorance? And how does it become a victim of ignorance? Anger. Where did anger come from? Lust. Where did lust come from? Attachment. Where did attachment come from? My senses. We are focusing on sensory objects. Now you see how all the lessons make sense. That is why right at the beginning, when Arjuna was asking, Krishna said, see, Arjuna is a warrior. So Arjuna was saying, you are talking about enemies. How do I know where the enemies are? And Krishna said, Navadware. Remember the word he used. You are living in this city of 9 gates. And there is where the enemies are entering from. It's a very beautiful way. Even in Vedanta, it is explained very beautifully. It is said that it's a city which has 9 gates. It's a powerful city. And our soul is the Maharaj, Samrat. And the mind and the intellect, they are like ministers. What happens? What is the problem? The problem many times is when the ministers are corrupt. When the ministers are corrupt, they are going to provide wrong guidance to the Samrat. You see the problem, right? And how do you make sure the ministers don't become corrupt? Is by making sure, you are not letting in those asuric qualities. By always yourself choosing Shreya over Preya, always having, humility, always developing sattvic qualities. And so that is the whole concept, but I will make it short here. in short, we just have to make sure that always choose Shreya over Preya, because it is not easy, it is difficult, and that is why we need to pay attention to that. So now if we recount the path and if we take away some key steps from the concluding verses, 16.19 to 16.24, I've taken some points here. The first point is, first identify the negative traits. That is catching the inner saboteur. Be aware and catch those negative things being active within us. Very important. What is a good way to make that more effective is by understanding the consequences. We have to catch those negative thoughts, but we can do a good job of catching those negative thoughts if we understand the consequence of not catching. Correct? So, understand the consequences. How you will understand the consequences? That is what the entire teaching of Krishna has been, where he has given us categorically, if you have asuric qualities, what's going to happen? If you are in arrogance, what's going to happen? If you are in lust, what's going to happen? All the consequences have already been listed. So we need to be completely aware of that. We have to have that knowledge. Now, when will that happen? When will we be able to understand this and actually do the catching? Letting go of pride. Because pride will not let us do anything constructive. So let go of that pride. The funny part is that seems like the most difficult thing to do. Everybody I know, including me, we all think that letting go of pride is that precious how, like it feels like a very difficult, but that is the easiest thing to do, because living in pride is actually difficult, because it is like carrying a big burden with us everywhere. It's actually difficult. Letting go of pride is actually easy. But pride doesn't let us understand this, Pride doesn't let us understand that letting go of pride is easy. Yeah, that is kind of the paradox here. Okay, and then study the scriptures, approach a teacher. See, don't fall for external appearances. This has been the guidelines given by all the saints and all the acharyas, is when we try to pick a teacher, that choice has to not be based on external appearances, that they are very charming or very tall or very fair. I mean, there are 100 different attributes. We all have these biases. So the scriptures just warn us not to fall that, because that is again a game of Maya. Just focus on the qualities and focus on the attributes. Pick whoever you are happy with, but pick a teacher. And once you pick a teacher, approach the teacher with the right mindset, and that has already been given by Krishna. Pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. I mean, do that. And if you do that, then you will be well set on the path to evolution. And Krishna says, keep referring to the scriptures. Keep internalizing the teachings. All the time. That is the user manual. We have to keep referring to that. We have to keep reinforcing those beliefs. Very, very important. So these are some key takeaways that I have. I was thinking we can have a short story. Now I'm wondering, I have two choices. Choice one, should I just tell a story? Or choice two, should I give a story, another story, a part of the story, and ask you to guess a few things about it? Okay. So Sandeepji is saying do the second. Okay, we will do the second. So I don't have it written, so it's coming from my memory, so forgive any mistakes there, but I have a good picture of the gist, the central idea of the story. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to tell you a story in a not very elaborate way. I'm not going into nitty-gritty details on somebody was walking, they saw a beautiful bird, and we will not go into that detail. I'll give you the key pointers from the story. And this story is about a very great personality of ancient India, ancient Bharat. And the first task is going to be to try and guess who this story is about. That is going to be the first task. So if you know who it is, you just raise your hands, okay? And then I'll pick. Okay, the story goes like this. There was this boy born in a Brahmin family, and his birth itself was very unique, because usually babies don't stay in the womb for more than 9 months, but he stayed in the womb for 12 months. So, and when he was born, right at the time of his birth itself, he looked more mature than any baby anybody has seen. He had all his teeth and he was taking the name of Lord. So the story goes on, but his father was a very prominent astrologer. So he looks at the boy's kundali and he says, this boy's planetary positions is not good. This boy is not good luck. The boy is bad. So, and his father says that, even if his shadow falls on us, we will be doomed. And that level of negativity based on his horoscope. Okay, but unfortunately, he loses his mother when he is very young, and his father wants to abandon him. And the story goes that later on his father also dies, but then he is taken up by the maid servant. There are many versions of this story. In one version, they say he is taken up by the maid servant. The other version, it says that a beggar takes him. But still, it is this, from a conceptually, it is the same thing. A very poor woman takes care of him, and she is a devotee herself. So she tells a lot of stories about the Lord and songs about the Lord, and he learns a lot. But unfortunately, within 5 years, even that lady passes away. So then society, you know how society is. Now society brands him. The society says he really is an unfortunate person because his parents also died and the other lady who took care of him also died. So his planets are definitely bad. He's bad luck, and so he's abandoned. And so at a young age of 5 to 6 years old, he has to beg, go from house to house. He has to beg for food. So he lives a very, very difficult life. Fast forward it, and let us go to the later part of his life where he gets married. He's still poor, but he gets married. And after marriage, he is extremely attached to his wife. So much so that once for Raksha Bandhan, the wife's brother comes and takes her home. And when he comes back to his own home, he sees his wife is not there, and the neighbor tells him that her brother came and took her because of Raksha Bandhan. And so for one night she's going to be away, and that house, brother's house, is across the river. So they have to cross the river, and it is raining very heavily. There's a storm, In spite of that, he cannot bear the separation from his wife. So he makes that arduous journey. He travels across the river, and his wife lives in a house which has this is all like, again, a few different versions, but the concept is kind of the same. So it is said that his wife was in the upper floor of the house, and so he decides to just catch hold of a rope and climb and jumps into the balcony. But what he doesn't realize, that he was so full of that attachment that he didn't realize that the rope he was holding was actually a snake. And when he jumps, when he comes in front of his wife is shocked. She looks at him, she looks at his state, and she's like, what is this? And you are even holding a snake in your hand. And this doesn't suit you. Like, what's wrong with you? And he's very upset. He throws away the snake. He's like, oh, I didn't realize I'm holding a snake. That shows how much I love you. He says the river was so flooded that none of the boatmen were willing to take me across. And there was a dead body floating in the river, and I jumped on top of the dead body and crossed the river. So he's expecting sympathy from his wife now. He's expecting, his wife to now praise him, saying, your love is so strong. But no, she's an elevated soul. She does the exact opposite. She tells him that, Dikha hai tum par, like, because what you call as love is not really love. It is actually just a desire for my flesh and my bones. That is what you are attracted to, but this is so temporary. This is not Sat, this is Asat. And then she tells him something very profound. She says, this kind of attachment, if you had for the Lord, you would have been such an elevated soul already. And that is the turning point in this person's life. It strikes him like a lightning bolt, where she tells him that this kind of attachment you have for me, if you had for the Lord, you would have elevated so much. And he's a changed man from that instance. And then, of course, there is a lot of story happens. We will let us fast forward to the other major highlight of this story is he is now so much in love of God that he tells his peers, he tells his other friends, he tells them that, this love for God, isn't it important that everybody gets to taste this love? Because today, the stories are all in Sanskrit, and only a very few can understand it. So I think we should rewrite this story in the common language that the people can understand. And needless to say, he gets chastised and he gets, scolded by the scholars and the Sanskrit scholars. So he was in Kashi at that time and they drive him away from Kashi. So again, he has a lot of hardships. But again, fast forward the story, go to the last milestone I'm going to tell you is then he actually succeeds in rewriting the stories of the Lord in the local dialect, and that becomes one of the most popular version of the stories which touches people's lives. So first question, I think somebody has already guessed who this is. Okay, 1, 2, 3 people have guessed it. Yes, Smita ji, you raised your hand first.
It's Tulsidas ji.
Exactly.
And the
So this is the story of Tulsidas, and he wrote Ramcharitmanas, that was in local dialect. We all know Tulsidas for his greatness. We all know Ramcharitmanas, but this part of the story is not that well known on how his life was so full of difficulty. There are so many lessons in this. So now this is the second part of my question is, if we have to pick, say, 3 lessons, are there anything coming to your mind? What do you think would be? Okay, we have 1 hand, 2 hands. Sulata ji, you raised your hand first. What lesson? First lesson?
Yeah, it is how, this ego-based vikaras, lust, greed, how they make us more ignorant and fall into the lower level that he didn't even realize lust, how he was born to this.
Excellent. Cool. So, okay. So that is one key lesson. The key lesson is how strong this lust is. It was so strong that he couldn't even discern that it is a snake instead of a rope. And he couldn't even, realize how weird it was to jump on a corpse to cross the river being a Brahmin. You see, that is the power of lust. But the beautiful addendum to this lesson is, this is what Krishna has also taught, and this is what we learned earlier, is the power of substitution. So if his wife did not say that don't have desire, his wife did not say that don't have attachment. His wife said, if this attachment you had for the Lord. So what he does, that powerful attraction that he has, he directs it towards the Lord. And that transforms him from just some poor Brahmin to the Tulsidas. See? And that is a very powerful lesson for all of us, that we all have a lot of these asuri tendencies, asuri qualities. And if we learn how to use the power of substitution, we can use it to our advantage. And we can all elevate ourselves. Okay, wonderful. Any other lesson that comes to mind? Yes, Lakshmi ji.
Accepting immediately, he doesn't give words to the pride because he is unwise. Accept what he doesn't see that his wife is telling. So he accepts the truth from the wife, and then that leads to him. That leads to take away the pride, and then going in there.
Excellent. Thank you. Beautiful second lesson. Is his wife is telling him, but what if he was in a mindset of pride? What if he was not able to let go of his pride? That lesson would not have made sense to him. Correct? He may have just gotten angry at his wife, fought with her. So that is the danger of pride. Pride does not let us see the truth even when truth is standing in front of us. So he was able to keep the pride down and listen. Beautiful. Okay. Any other lesson that comes to mind? Yes, Poonam ji.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. The key lesson is the right guidance. His wife, in today's time, if this would have happened, the girls would have been very happy. But that time, she made him realize that she played the key role in his life. She did not get attracted towards that love or his sacrifice, and he came all the way, hold the snake. In today's time, they would have been very happy. But she was the right guide for that person.
Okay,
or
thank you.
to
Thank
bring
you.
him to that level.
Thank you. Okay, we can take that also. Another lesson is that the right guidance was there. But more than having the right guidance, he was able to approach the guidance the right way.
Yes.
Because if the same guidance was there, but he was in a mindset of pride, then he would not have got it. Excellent. What other lesson comes to mind? Okay.
We can't
So
hear.
Kalpana
We
ji
can't
tells
hear.
me of another lesson. She tells that the astrology, because this was a very powerful lesson from Krishna, where Krishna had said that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So we cannot, become mayus just because somebody told that your astrology chart is bad or your kundali is bad. That's okay. But if we make a resolve to go in the right direction, if we make a resolve to align with the Lord, then nothing matters. None of this matters, and the Lord is always that. I mean, we are not talking about any simple, ordinary, elevated. We are talking about Tulsidas. Okay, and in fact, many scriptures they say that Tulsidas is an incarnation of Valmiki. That is what is written in many other scriptures. But that level of a person also had a, so that is why we should not treat them as the final verdict. Yes, Deepaji, you are trying to say something?
No, also the fact that you shared that this knowledge was only in Sanskrit, and he again took up the challenge and said, no, we should share it to the wider people, this knowledge. So there itself also he didn't keep it to himself when he got aligned with God and he gained the knowledge.
He became a Sevanandi and he wanted to serve the people. Yes. And that is what made him Tulsidas. That's what made him so great and so popular. Excellent. Chitraji, you are trying to say something?
Yes, Guruji. I don't know exactly if this is in the right context, but even though his conviction was towards reaching his wife, it was one-pointed. He did not see anything in his path. He was so focused on reaching his wife. So, I mean, that one-pointed focus, even though it was towards his wife, but his conviction was so strong. So the lesson is conviction over here.
Excellent, excellent. And your observation is pretty sharp. But this is the whole lesson. The lesson is directed towards the Lord. And that becomes your biggest power. So he had one pointed desire and one pointed focus. And his wife just helped him direct it towards a different point. And when that same thing was directed towards the right point, that got him elevated. So excellent. There is one more lesson. From a perspective of, I can even give a hint, from a perspective of a bhakti yogi, a person on the path of bhakti, what lesson would you take away? This is probably the most powerful lesson for ordinary people like us. Smita Srinivas, you wanted to say something?
No, I think Dada Smita ji, she said the same thing. No, what I was more thinking was like, maybe I could be wrong, but Guruji, I didn't think it was lust that actually propelled him to do what it was. I think it was his deep love for his wife. So when you can love someone deeply, she just directed that love towards the divine. Because I don't think that attachment will come if you cannot love someone so deeply. So he just realized that, okay, I mean, the amount of love he has for his wife is impermanent. I mean, it's not permanent. But if you love God, it's going to be there always. It's permanent. Yeah. So I think that way, I thought it that way. Because lust is very temporary, right? I mean, love is very deep. So when you can love another individual, it could be kids, it could be anybody that deeply, I think you can love God that deeply too. So he had that heart already. So that is what I thought. And
that's a good point, that he had the potential. Of course, it's a technical distinction between love and lust. So the key difference is, first of all, what he was missing was the physical proximity. So in love, you don't really have to have physical proximity because,
There was no phone also to talk, no, Guruji, those days. So maybe, sorry, I was just kidding.
Yeah. So, I mean, so in other words, what he was missing was the body. Correct? That is why he had to be close to the body, because in the heart she was already there and she was going to come back the next day anyways. It was just a matter of one night. So that is one aspect of lust. The other aspect of lust, as we said, the difference between love and lust, both you can say is love, but the fundamental difference is when we just say love, we are thinking about how to please the other person, what will give happiness to the other person. When we are thinking about lust, it is all about what I want, what's going to make me happy. So in that instance, his wife was pretty happy being with her brother. That's why she voluntarily went with him. But he was not happy. He felt, I will be happy if I am with my wife physically. Correct? So the focus is on us and what makes us happy, and that is where we made the distinction. And his wife, the way she scolds him is a scolding for the lust aspect only, because she's saying that what you are attracted to is my flesh and bones, and that is temporary. That was the key message. But there is still one more lesson. Yes, Sandeep ji?
The chanting, that is the biggest lesson for the Kali Yuga. The more kirtan and other things you do, that is the bhakti yoga which
Definitely.
we can achieve.
That there is no doubt about that. You are right, Sandeep ji. So, Naam Sankirtan, chanting. So maybe I will bring that aspect here. And this, in my opinion, is extremely important for Bhakti Yogis. See, all of these things like we should love God and we should praise God and we should chant and we should do, all of this seems pleasant, all of this seems good. When do you think it fails? Can somebody tell me? When do you think all of this, when do you think our prayer takes a pause? When do you think we are not able to? Yes, Chitra ji?
When we don't get what we expected.
Okay.
So there is
okay,
there
that's
is
a good answer.
expectation.
In other words, when you think or when we think that our life is not going the way we want it, or when we come across hurdles, when we come across disappointments, when we come across painful episodes, when we come across troubles, that is when our bhakti takes a backseat. Whereas that is when the bhakti should actually be in the forefront. So if you look at the life of Tulsidas, from childhood, his life was one disaster after another. But that didn't make him a bitter person. He didn't grow up to say, I don't believe in God. See? And when his wife said, you should direct it towards Ram, he was full, ready, he was ripe. And he went on to become Tulsidas. See, the key sentence I want to say here is the sentence that Shirdi Sai Baba said, which made the deepest impact. And it is such a providence that I am giving this example twice today. Some of you were with me in the Swami Samartha session this morning, and we spoke about the exact same thing, is Krishna's plan, and it is happening even now. So that sentence from Shirdi Sai Baba, which was the most powerful sentence, that changed my perspective and that helped me get on the path of bhakti. He said that bhakti ek tapasya hai. Bhakti is a tapasya. What that means is bhakti is not fashionable, bhakti is not comfortable, bhakti is not pleasant. It's not that you are comfortably sitting, everything is going well, and then you are saying Hare Rama or Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. That's okay. I mean, you can do that. But the real bhakti is when you are in pain, when your faith is shaken, when you are uncomfortable. Does bhakti come to you then? Because when bhakti comes at that time, that is the biggest tapasya that you can do. And that is the tapasya that helps us accelerate our evolution. See, if you remember the story in Mahabharata, we have spoken about it, I think, a few months ago. This is one of the most powerful parts of the Mahabharata, where the war is over, the Pandavas have got victory. And now Shri Krishna says, okay, I've done my job. I've got you victory, and now I'm leaving. I have my own, tasks to take care of. And then Kunti runs to Krishna and she says, don't turn your back to me. Do you remember that part? in the Mahabharata. It's very, very powerful. You know, she says, Krishna, whenever I was in trouble, you came running to me. But now that everything seems fine, you are turning away from me. What I want is you always turn towards me. So, Krishna, please give me more difficulties. Please give me more challenges, so that I can keep thinking of you and you will keep coming to me. I don't want you to go like this. That's the, I would say, the most powerful part of the Mahabharata. And for Bhakti Yogis, there is the secret. That is the nectar of Bhakti Yoga hidden right there. Is whenever we feel like abhi mood nahi hai bhakti ka, abhi God kidhar hai, abhi मैं खुश नहीं है, नहीं, तबीच bhakti ज़्यादा करने का. That is the real opportunity for us, because that is when bhakti becomes your tapasya. So I hope this makes sense. So with that, I think I will stop talking. Hare Krishna. Hope this all makes sense. And I'll open the floors for questions, comments, and next week we can do the revision and kirtan. So the floor is open, my dear Satsang family.
Your last message left all of us speechless.
Yeah.
But okay. No, I mean, while you were the earlier part of the section where you said, no, I'm not remembering the word, but some of the things like "It's my life" or "The winner takes it all." There are these songs made on these lines, Guruji. You know
Yes,
those
yes.
songs. I mean, yeah. So how does that one connect that? When you were telling all this, that was running at the back of my mind. Like very, very popular songs, and we dance on those songs. Or like "The winner takes it all." I think one of the ABBA best numbers these are. So
Yes, yes.
how do you put that into perspective?
No, I'm saying that is what people in Asuric tendency enjoy. That's what I'm saying. And that is why it becomes a song. That is why those songs become hit. Because it appeals to people in that mode, and majority are in that mode. And that's what we need to realize, understand. And Krishna is saying, go look at the scriptures, read the scriptures and see what is the reality, what is truth. And follow that instead of following this, ignorance-based approach. Okay, then. Thank you so much, Satsang family. Looking forward to seeing you all in the next session. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.